Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight, our guest is Audrey Bella Langston, the birthday girl, kidney transplant patient, kidney advocate, broadcaster, and podcaster. Audrey has a very, very compelling kidney story. Audrey's back with us for her second time. Her first broadcast was on July 29th, 2003. On this occasion, we are not only celebrating her recent birthday on March 6th, but also, and get this, her 20th anniversary of her kidney transplant on March 4th, 2005, where her godson, Roger Reynolds, who's going to join us a little bit later, donated a kidney to her. Audrey is a retired Chicago police officer, a mother, and a grandmother. Her kidney story begins in 1993. She was on a weekend trip with friends when suddenly she became very ill. By the next day, she was rushed home to a Chicago hospital. Her blood pressure had skyrocketed, and she went completely and totally blind. After she was admitted, she had a biopsy performed on her kidneys and was diagnosed with focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, or FSGS. That's a mouthful, isn't it? As a new police officer and a single mother of two, this was devastating news. But our Audrey, she's a fighter. She was assigned to a nephrologist and began to educate herself about kidney disease and FSGS. She began to advocate with the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, becoming one of their trusted public speakers, and with the gift of hope. She was also a member of the task force team called Life Goes On, founded by the Secretary of State, Jesse White, and the National Organization for Transplant Enlightenment at Tampa General Hospital. After an 8-year period, she was placed on the kidney transplant list, and after several false starts, she had to start peritoneal dialysis. She was on PD for 6 months when her godson offered her a kidney. They were a perfect match, and on Friday, March 4th, 2005, she received her transplant at Northwestern Hospital in Chicago just in time for her birthday. And as I noted earlier, she is 20 years out from her transplant. You got to tell us how you did that, Audrey. Finally, as you know, Audrey was given back to the community by educating and raising awareness through her broadcasts and podcasts, including Bella's Hope for Healing and her work with the Urban Health Media Outreach. Both she and Roger are doing very, very well since the time of her transplant. Please give a warm welcome to our friend Audrey Bella Langston is with us tonight. Audrey, how are you?
Hi, I am fabulous, Uncle Jim. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you.
Oh,
Good
I'm
to be
glad you're
on your
here.
show.
Good to see
Yeah,
you
yeah,
too.
yeah. You look great yourself.
Oh,
I
thank
see
you.
you
Thank
doing
you
your
very
thing
much. All dressed up, no place to go. Did I
Yeah,
state everything correctly in the introduction? Is there
yes,
anything we need to
sir. I'm
fix?
impressed. Yes, you did your homework. I think we can end the show now.
Oh, not really.
You did. You entered. Everything you stated was on point for sure. For
Good,
sure.
good.
Yes. And,
I
mhm.
I understand that we are currently celebrating your birthday from March 6th and your kidney anniversary from March 4th, 2005. How does that make you feel to know that your transplanted kidney has lasted for 20 years?
I tell you, it's Uncle Jim. It's just I first and foremost, I give God all the glory for that. From the time of infliction of FSGS. And yes, I was laughing when you were saying, "Oh, that's a long name." We all went through that. It took me a while to get it down myself, and so I see why they short term it FSGS. But yeah, I just have been so blessed from the beginning of acquiring FSGS until this, just to get to this point of 20 years. And every year I celebrate it, but I don't give it much thought because I am so comfortable in just who I am in my life and being healthy. You know, little things come along here and there with everyone, you know, especially as recipients. We tend to catch colds easier and things like that. But I'm always confident and faithful that whatever I, you know, succumb to with regard to those little things, that God is just going to just get me through it. And so that always gives me encouragement, you know, and to be able to pour that love and my story into other people so that it can give them hope.
Okay. Uh, Please tell us a little bit about where you grew up, your educational history, and your employment experience. And you can
Yeah,
use the
so
streamline method if you wish.
yeah. So I grew up in Chicago, Illinois, South Side, as we Chicagoans say, in an area called Chatham for the most part, and went to. I was in Catholic schools, grammar school, high school, and went to college locally. I did not go away to school. You know, and I was actually, I had my son by the time I was, you know, 18. And so I had no desire to leave and go away to college and leave him. And I mostly, prior to becoming a police officer, I leaned toward, as far as career, administrative jobs, worked for a great deal of law firms, other than in younger years, like when in high school, like I worked for Burger King and, you know, for my part-time job, and elevated that. My grandmother was an employee at Mercy Hospital at that time, and she ended up getting me a job there when I turned about 16, almost 17, at the hospital. And I worked there for a few years, and then that's when I started to go into administration careers. And so, fast forward to getting on the police department, I was actually, I was 30, a little over 30 when I got on the police department, actually about 32. And from that point, um, going through the academy, my children are right at 14 years apart. And so when I decided that I wanted to be the police, I took the exam, passed it with very, very high score because they categorized the scores, and was about to go to the next process when I found out that I was pregnant with Ashley. And so I told them that I wouldn't be able to continue the process because I was pregnant with her. And they asked, well, can we just put you in our system as inactive? And when you have your baby, if you're still interested, let us know, which I said, fine. And as fate would have it, they called me when she was about 6 weeks old, and I was interested in continuing, oddly enough, having a newborn. But I had such a great support system in my family. And so I had lots of help with my children on both sides of the family. So I went through, started getting in the process of trying to get back in shape to pass the test, the physical test, to even move forward. And that was pretty grueling, but at any rate, I made it on and made it through. And again, fast forwarding, I was on that weekend trip for my birthday as a newly minted police officer, and going out of town for my birthday I think I was about 32 and just got really, really sick and didn't know what was going on. I would like people to know, because it's really important to know the signs of kidney disease. I was dealing with extreme urination, but a lot of those times when I would go to the restroom, it was just pressure. There was not a lot of urine being released. Very foamy urine. My urine was foamy. So that's a sign too, when you're urinating and it's just really bubbly. It shouldn't be, like that. Or if you see blood, when your hands and feet may be swelling. I didn't have all those symptoms, but the urinating, I was nauseous. I wasn't vomiting at that particular time, but I was very nauseous. And it was some confusion. It was a confusion. In other words, I was very jittery and antsy, and that wasn't me. That wasn't who I was. So I couldn't figure that out. And I think that was the point where I wasn't aware at the time that I realized my blood pressure was going up. So I do believe that's what was causing that. And as you stated, I had to be rushed back home, and en route, I went blind totally, as you said. And then I really panicked. I know I was having palpitations, and I just felt the gas gunning in the car, in the car. And so, when I got in, they slapped that blood pressure cuff on me, and it was about 180 over 120. And they had told
Wow.
my friend, yes, that's why she's lost her sight. Because he's like, she's blind. She doesn't, she can see. They said because it's her blood pressure, it's skyrocketed. So we're going to have to get that down really quickly. And thank God you got her here, because had you gotten her here about 15, 20 minutes from now, she was about to have a massive stroke.
Wow. You mentioned that you have children. Tell
Hmm.
us a little bit about your children and your grandchildren.
Oh my gosh, those are my loves. Yeah, so my son, my oldest child is Brian. He's an amazing young man. Just always been brilliant. I am always proud to share that he is that kid that never gave me problems as a teenager. He went through school. He loved learning. He loved excelling. Now, I'm not saying perfect, people, because we know our kids, can do things that we don't even know about. But I'm saying he always was very focused, and he loved educating himself. And he completed his master's degree as a master in finance and fiscal management. And he is married, happily married. He just celebrated, I want to say he and his wife, beautiful daughter-in-law, Danielle, they just celebrated, I believe, their 20th wedding anniversary, I think. Yeah, and he is the chief of finance for the organization that he works for. I have his two girls, my granddaughters, Lauren and Whitney. One just turned 18, the other one today, 16. Amazing girls on their way to great things in life. They have great parents. And then my baby girl, Ashley, and her husband, Keith. I can truly say, I know this isn't the case for all parents, but I love my daughter and son-in-law. I just, I am, and they love me. I'm just so grateful that, I've seen some not so nice situations in, family marriages, and we all love each other and get along. It's like God definitely made them for each other. And Ashley, another great student, very focused young lady. My girl, my little girl, she never gave me any problems. She is now an actual attorney and resides here with Keith. Keith works for Tiffany and Company. So I do get nice goodies of Tiffany jewelry because it's the truth. Yeah, and she started out as an attorney with the Harris County prosecutor, and she moved into immigration law, which she did. She's bilingual, and yeah, and they just had their first child, Emerald, my sweet little Emerald. She's so precious, so bright, so fun. And she's just 16 months now. Yeah, and that's our little family here, and that's where we are right now.
Okay. We were talking about your kidney experiences and your issues beginning in 1993, and you were telling us that you had been transferred from this trip back to Chicago, a hospital in Chicago, and that as a result of the high blood pressure, blindness had been caused. Uh, and I understand that a biopsy was performed. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so of course I was admitted right away, of course, and the doctor was talking to me, and I could, like I said, I couldn't see anything. That was the worst part at that time for me. But he said, I think you may have a kidney issue, but I'm going to check. And of course, they ask you questions about your background, family background. And my grandmother had kidney disease. So there is a big possibility that it was genetic. It's really can never be proven, except I think when it's not PD, but the other one where usually, you know what I'm
PKD.
PKD. Thank you. Because I have friends who have that PKD is in their family, and it went through
My
every
hands up.
sibling. There you go. I forgot you had that, Uncle Jim. I knew you had dealt with the disease, the kidney disease, but yeah,
Right.
and yeah, it was a dear friend of mine in Florida. She and both her brothers ended up with it, and I'm pretty sure it was her dad that had it. But he said this biopsy that I'm going to perform is going to tell me a lot, if in fact that's it. So by the next morning, which by the way, also my sight gradually was coming back because now the blood pressure was going down. He came in the room and he said, okay, yeah, you have a kidney disease. What happened is that one of your kidneys, the function is actually down to about 30%. And that was your body triggering a warning saying something's wrong. Because it was, of course, overworking the other one. And he said, and the particular disease that you have is called focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. And I said, what? What did you just say? And he says it again. He says, but it's okay. We call it FSGS. And so I was just stunned, and I'm just sitting there staring into space. I'm probably kind of freaking out on the inside. With that thing we go through, the doom and gloom and the why me. But for those who don't know, FSGS, what it is, it's the severe scarring of the tissue inside the kidney, which is called the scarring of the glomeruli. And it is one of the pretty intense diseases, as he told me. He said, so basically what's going to happen is it's going to eventually attack the other one too. And it's going to destroy your kidneys. He was a little too curt for me. I mean, it was, some doctors just don't have that bedside manner. And you got somebody scared in front of you who, by the way, I was in the best shape of my life coming out that police academy. Oh my gosh, I wish I could go back there again. Very toned and musky. Yeah, anyway. So I'm blown away. I'm thinking, oh my God, my poor children, and that's what he said I had. And he said, eventually you're going to be looking at the need for a dialysis possibly and a transplant. Hopefully you can get a living donor, but if not, we have a list. And so he went into explaining all that.
He was talking about preemptive transplant too, was he not?
Yeah.
Transplant before dialysis.
Before dialysis. And that was my initial goal, really, to try to prayerfully, after the research I started doing on my own and educating myself, that is exactly what I was trying to make happen, initial, and when we first started out. And and so it was coming to that. But the good blessing too is, how they want to put you on a lot of these meds when you get diagnosed.
Yes.
The only med that I refused was the steroid prednisone. I never had prednisone. I refused it.
Okay.
Because I asked, isn't that drug that blows people up really big? Well, and
you swell up. Yeah.
Swell up. I said, I knew people on it. You're eating all the time because it's the med that's making you do it. And he goes, well, yeah, but after a while we might be able. I said, well, no, I'm not taking that. I'm a cop. I can't chase anybody blown up like that or do my job effectively. I'm a new police officer. So I refused it. And I just said, tell me everything that I should not do at this point, what I shouldn't eat, what I shouldn't drink. And I made lifestyle changes. And by the end of the meds that I needed to take, I took, the phosphate binders and just a few of those other little things.
High blood
And
pressure medication, sure.
yeah, I did great. And praise God, it was almost 8 years before it got to an aggressive stage.
Okay. How long were you in the hospital?
Went in on March 4th, which was the day before my birthday. Roger went home the next day on the 5th. I went home on my birthday, which was my 43rd birthday.
No, I mean not for the transplant, but in the
Oh, I'm
hospital when you
sorry.
were diagnosed.
Oh, I see. Oh, I was only in the hospital maybe it was 3 days. It wasn't very long. Yeah, it wasn't very long.
Which hospital was this, Audrey?
When I went in the hospital for the diagnosis, I was in the University of Chicago. That's where I
Okay.
started out. Yes.
All right. And you mentioned that you began to educate yourself about kidney disease and
Yes.
FSGS. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences with that?
Yeah. So I knew for me it was going to be important to find out everything I could after I got through the sad factor and why me and all of that stuff that everybody kind of goes through. I started reading, going to the library, reading a lot on kidney disease. I got involved. The first organization that I got involved with was the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois. So that's an amazing organization. It was for me at that time to start out with. And I got so deeply involved with them. They would ask me to speak at transplant seminars and things like that. And then from there, it just spiraled into me getting noticed by the Secretary of State's, one of his main representatives. He saw me speaking. I spoke even for the police department to encourage our officers on good health. And he, how people mention you and, oh, she'd be great. And that's how that came about with Jesse White. And then all the other organizations. And from each of those organizations, that was education for me, Jim. I learned so much talking to the doctors and the dialysis nurses and things like that. So,
Okay.
and yeah, so that's how that started.
I wanted to mention to our audience, this broadcast is pinned to the top of my Facebook page, Jim Myers, Myers. If you go into the comments to the broadcast, there's all of my research on Audrey. So if you want to drill down on the things that she's talking about, they're in the comments to the broadcast. Okay, you mentioned that it was 8 years before you were placed on a kidney transplant list. Can you tell us why it took so long?
Well, sure. You know, so let's start with like we talked about a few minutes ago. My whole point, what I was trying to accomplish was to get a transplant before having to get on, a list, get a living donor. And that was a blessing. I did have at that time three people that stepped up to donate. Now, for those who are going through this or haven't or have not, and prayerfully you will never have to, how that works is the doctors aren't just looking to snatch one of your organs. That's not how it works. They're going to make sure you're okay. And not just for the purpose of donation, but for you too. They want to make sure, that you're not sick in any way, because a lot of times, guys, we can have illnesses that are deep. They have not manifested, that we don't know about, such as what? Hypertension, which is why it's called the silent killer. If they find out that you are hypertensive in some way or even slightly, 9 out of 10, you're going to be ruled out as a potential donor. Why? Because that's not good for you, because there's a possibility that one day, unfortunately, hypertension can spiral into affecting your kidneys. And so please, if you are somebody who deals with high blood pressure, make sure you're really taking care of that, so that even if it started there, it ends there. And take your medication and exercise, lay off the soda, drink lots of water. Okay, so moving past that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's and so unfortunately, long story short, those 3 people were ruled out for various reasons. And it was regarding their, like either like my son was one, but he wasn't a good enough match. I was shocked by that. I had not done a lot of research on antigen matching and things like that. But then the 2 other people, the one that really made it, that was going to be the one, and that everything worked well. Unfortunately, she had to back out. So that took me back now to square one, where I was.
Okay.
And so when Roger found out, that's a detailed story, but I won't get in all those details. It's actually a beautiful story. Roger found out, he still did not know that person who everybody we knew was a go, and Discovery Health Channel was following my story, so it was going to be on there. He found out that she backed out, and he said he was home visiting. He was home actually for my son's wedding, and he said he was going to get tested, and so that's what he did, and hopefully, I don't know if he's still going to make it in here due to
No,
work.
he's here. I just have to bring him on.
Okay, yeah. And so that's how Roger came into play, that he tested. He was an excellent match. We had probably a 7. I think we deal with 8 antigens. He was like 7. And so we went in the hospital. Hey, hon, we went in the hospital on that Friday, I believe it was, Roger, if I'm not mistaken. And like I said, I just remember telling them before they were going to wheel us in, don't let anything happen to him. Don't let, I was really like, take care of him. And they said, we got him. Don't worry about it. And yeah, and so it went great. I think we visited each other. You came and visited me, I think the first day we had the transplant, or was it the next day?
Audrey did not bribe me. Audrey is perfect. Audrey is nice. Audrey is everything.
How you doing, Roger?
I'm great. How about yourself, Jim?
All right. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you.
Hey, one more question for Audrey, then I need to talk to you for a little bit.
Okay.
I understand, Audrey, that because of the false starts and the delays that you ended up on peritoneal dialysis.
Yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your experiences with that?
Yeah. So I think the first course of action is always going to be hemodialysis. So if I that was all explained. I had to go into training for that. First thing, they assigned me a vascular surgeon, who, by the way, was amazing. I mean, other patients have always said, I don't even see a scar on your arm. That's how good he was. But you know what they're doing, of course, too, you at first 6 to 7 weeks, you're waiting for that vein to progress and get larger so they can actually access it. And so we were at that point about 6.5 weeks later, where it was time for me to get my first dialysis treatment. And to be honest with you, that was the day that this whole thing was really surreal to me. I think that was the day, maybe even after diagnosis, of course, crying, that I broke down. That was hard. Sitting in that chair, that reality, was coming in, because I remember going to see my grandmother at dialysis and checking in on her. So I'm like, I can't believe that I'm here about to, go through this.
Yeah.
But at any rate, what gave me hope is seeing little children in chairs across the way, and they've got their coloring books, they're laughing. I said, I will never feel sorry for myself about this. These kids, these are babies, practically. So the nurse started the process, and she put the cannulator in, and instead of her going in the vein, she went through it and infiltrated it. Talk about painful. Oh my God. I hadn't felt pain like that. It was just unreal. And I said, you will never put that thing in my arm again. The next day, my entire arm was black and blue, and it scared my daughter. She said, Mom, your arm, you know. And so I heard the nurse say to her, did you tell Audrey about PD? Because with her lifestyle, I think that would be great for her. And she had not mentioned it. And I liked the nurse that was working with me. So then she told me about it. I said, let's do it. You know, so that's how I ended up on PD. And I had to fortunately only do that for 6 months, 7 days a week, 10 hours a night, disconnect the tube, the machine from the tube in my stomach, jump in the shower, wrap it back up, put my uniform on, and went to work every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Roger, my notes are telling me that when you offered Audrey a kidney, you were only 24 years old. What made you make this decision to offer her a kidney?
First, I was going to get tested just to say I got tested. That like hey, I got tested. It's a no, and that was really all I was going to do, just to get tested, to say I did it, and that be it. I had no idea that I would be the match that I was, since her son Brian, you know, was ruled out. So to answer your question honestly, I was just going to say that I went and didn't think anything further than that.
Were you surprised when you found out you were a match?
Very, very, very surprised in one moment, and then happy the next moment, because I was able to do it. Yeah.
Did Audrey know that you were going in to test for her, or was that a surprise to her?
I think I mentioned it. It wasn't a surprise. We didn't talk in depth about it. I think I mentioned in passing that, hey, I'm going to go get tested while I'm here, and I'll let you know what they say. So there was never a discussion about it. There was never this plan or, you know, anything of that nature. I just went and got the results. Yeah.
Were you surprised when in fact you found out you were a match?
Yes, very, very, very much so. I just didn't think that I would be.
Tell us a little bit about when you disclosed this to Audrey. What was that like?
Well, I didn't disclose it to Audrey first. I disclosed it to Brian, her son, my friend. And so I said, hey,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think each interview we find out something different.
That's true. It's a long time ago now. Right about that.
I think I told him first, and we discussed it, and we were really, really, really best friends at the time. And he said, well, you told me, now if you tell Mom, you have to go through with it. Like, she's been through enough with past possibilities that didn't, you know, pan
a lot
out.
Of false alarms.
Correct. So he wanted to make sure that if I proceeded past telling him to tell Audrey, that I would, you know, follow through. And even when I told Audrey, I don't even think there was a celebration, or there was because I think she had obviously been to this point before, and, you know, didn't make it through the complete process. So it wasn't a celebration. I think it was more of, well, let's see what they say the next steps are, and then we'll just take it step by step.
She was cautious because of her bad experiences?
I believe so, yeah. And I also think
Audrey?
think she was cautious because of my age.
Yeah. I thank you. Yeah, Roger's correct. Yes, Uncle Jim, and you're correct. You know, I really didn't want Roger to do it for two reasons. I know he was finishing up some educational things at that time. I think down at, was it Tennessee State?
University of Memphis, ma'am.
Sorry, University of Memphis. Memphis, Tennessee. But no, and it was that part about the false starts. That was very traumatic to keep going through that, you know, not so much what with my son, that wasn't it, but the person who was going to be the actual donor. That was a lot. That was she went through the entire process, you know, and passed everything with flying colors. And it was traumatic to be in the room waiting to sit down with the transplant team, waiting for her to come down to the meeting, because she actually worked in the hospital. And here's Discovery Health Channel filming. And then she called and said she wasn't going to be able to do it. So after that, I just put in my mind, you know what, I'm just going to go on dialysis because I can't take this pain anymore. I don't want to put anybody in that position. But you remember too, Raj, I started out at University of Chicago. Remember Dr. Javid? Yeah, I said his name. He denied you.
Yeah, and it was something really minuscule too. It was like
it was your calcium. He said his calcium level was a fraction or a point too high, and he rejected him. Yeah. Can you believe that? So now that's
unbelievable.
It was. You have no idea, Uncle Jim, how unbelievable that was. I was very angry. And my doctor there was the chief of nephrology. I loved my doctor. She was my doctor starting out, you know, and she even said, I am sorry. But I can't override it. I do not agree with him. I told him that. But see, that's what I'm saying. You can't step in those shoes, you know, even as the big cheese. So remember, that's when your dad suggested we go to Northwestern.
And my dad just retired from Northwestern Hospital after 49 years of employment there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Northwestern talked to my doctor at University of Chicago, because she said, they want you guys. I thought we were going to have to start the whole process again. They said, no, send us all the paperwork. And she had a nurse stay up. She told me she had her stay over late to get all that paperwork there. And they went over it. And you remember, it was only a few days later, they called and said, we got good news and bad news. I'll never forget that. Which one you want first? And I'm like, I done had enough bad news to last me the rest of my life. Give me some good news. Well, the good news is that you are an excellent candidate to get a kidney transplant. And Roger, they said, we don't see how they let you guys walk out that door and not do the transplant, because I was a great candidate and Roger was an excellent donor. And I don't know, I thought we were on the phone together, but anyway, it was just total happiness and joy. And then it's like, well, wait, what's the bad news? Oh, we can't get you guys in until next Friday.
Right.
It was a joke.
Next Friday.
And we were elated. Yeah, I know it's hard to remember, probably too for Roger, some of those little details, but for me, I remember everything.
Yeah. Okay. I remember the process when we transferred over there going really fast, but I didn't remember that it happened. Like the procedure happened that soon.
It was, yeah.
Roger, how did you feel when you found out things were going to work out?
And I tell this story all the time. I didn't think about Audrey. I didn't think about Brian. Her daughter Ashley was on my mind, because Ashley was how old at the time?
Oh my gosh. Ashley couldn't have been any more than 13, maybe 13.
And so I had sisters just a little bit older than Ashley, and so I couldn't imagine my sisters being without my mom. So that was what fueled me to like really, really do it. And I was ecstatic when they told us that, we were greenlit.
Roger, one of the things that I've heard over and over again is that the people that do the transplant are constantly reminding the potential donor that they can back out or they can change their mind if they wish to do that. Did you have that experience? Were they telling you from time to time, you know, if you want to bag this, you can?
Maybe once or twice. And I think I may remember telling them to stop asking me that. So I think once or twice, but not every time I saw them or every appointment. I don't remember a hassle of telling me that I have the option to back out.
Okay. Let's talk about March 4th, 2005 at Northwestern. Ladies first, Audrey, tell me from your point of view, what happened that day?
Yeah, well, that was an exciting, really exciting day. I don't think I slept the night before, because you know we had to be there really early. I think about 5 a.m. or something like that. So you know, there was, you know, my aunt, God rest her soul, she's deceased now, but she was a great driving force of support, and she was going to be there. So we had people there. We had people. Roger ended up having
the lobby was full.
It was. That lobby was full. That we had some support. We
Yeah.
had some support. And we had cheers of support coming from Roger. Didn't mention this, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Uncle Jim, but one of the things I tell people, in my humble opinion, that always made Roger non-apprehensive about donation is because he was working for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois part-time when, 16?
Yeah, as a high school senior, we had the program where we had to work half the day as seniors, and they appointed me to work at the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, even before Audrey's, you know. Yeah, so I was aware of the general knowledge about kidney donation and kidney function, but not so much about the transplant and all those type of things. I was still just 16 working there, so I was mailing out things and answering phone calls. But I was still that seed planted, I guess, my willingness to go through with it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So at the hospital, I'm sorry, and back to that, I apologize because I got off track with that, but it made me think about him working there. That's
that's fine.
To me.
We're doing great.
Yeah, and I just know that was ordained by the Lord. But at any rate, you know, I was of course very nervous, a little, you know, scared, you know, not knowing what the real outcome is going to be. And it's not like this is going in for a little minor surgery. This is a big deal, you know, and things can always go wrong with any surgery. But I just kept trying to, and as well as loved ones around, calming myself. And I was like thinking about him, because I was like, oh my God, I just want him to be okay, you know? And of course I wanted to be okay, and I wanted my children to be okay. But what was really funny was, you know, that's when they give you that good stuff to calm you down. And so I remember after story, then, you know, some of the family saying, yeah, man, you were like high out of your mind. You were saying because 1 minute you were, yeah, and making sure he's okay. And the next minute you were like, yeah, so doctor, how many kids you say you got? You know, like I cared about his kids. I said, I did. And he said they were just laughing, you know. So, yeah, and then once you're out. And I wake up and, you know, I don't remember being in major pain, but discomfort. I remember being told too, it was possible that Roger would be in more pain than me, because maybe the extraction of an organ for someone, Roger can take over from there. That's pretty much how I felt. I felt just like you would feel after surgery, but talking, because he came to visit me.
Okay. Roger, tell us a little bit from your point of view, what happened that day?
So I think Audrey left out the part where when we were prepping for the procedure, I actually stayed at her home, which I did, you know, every time I was in town. And during high school, me and her son would take her car and go play. Anyway, so
Not take it. without my permission. I give them the keys. Now let me clarify that.
So that morning it was really early. I don't even remember seeing you in your own home that morning. I don't even think we crossed paths in your
I don't believe
that
we
morning.
did.
And we drove separate. Did we drive separate cars?
Yeah, I don't remember you going with us either. Yeah.
But I remember the waiting room filled with family, my mom, my friends, my grandma, who was the only one who was the actual holdout until she realized that if something was to ever happen to mine, I would have priority on the transplant list. But yeah, of course they wheeled me in and shaved me up.
Yeah.
Of course I don't remember when I went out as far as anesthesia goes, but when I awoke, mom was there saying, "Hey, raise your arm, twinkle your toes, make sure everything is fine." And just like Audrey, I don't recall pain from the physical procedure. My pain was passing the gas of whatever they pumped me up with. That was my pain because it was trapped for days. And so it was gas pain.
You sure did say that, yeah.
Surgical pain from the incisions, which they didn't stitch me up. They used surgical glue. And they didn't cut me from here to there. I have 3 small incisions, maybe the size of my fingertip.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and they did cut me right under my
laparoscopic
stomach.
surgery then.
Right, laparoscopic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was even discharged the next day. I know there were benchmarks I had to make, and I made those benchmarks, and I was discharged the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you were up walking around and went home.
I was up walking around hours after the procedure.
Mm-hmm. Right, because yeah, go ahead, honey.
This is the funny part. The surgeon afterwards, he came in to talk to me. He said, "Well, there was no issues. Everything was fine, but you had 2 or 3 nerve endings that didn't show up on the X-ray, and so we had to go ahead and cut those. We couldn't. I mean, we were already in there, so we just snipped them, and you'll figure out what those nerve endings were later." I'm like,
what?
Okay.
Well, wait, I didn't know that. I didn't remember that. Did you ever figure it out?
You hear it here first. So do we have minors watching? I'll word it properly. So the nerve endings they cut linked to my reproductive organ.
Okay.
So I had some numbness for maybe 2 to 3 months before the nerve endings grew back. So
okay.
Wow.
Okay. When was the first time you saw Audrey after you donated?
What, a couple hours? I came to your room.
Yeah, there's a photo.
Yeah, I walked to the room.
I thought I sent it to you, Uncle Jim, and the Sun Times was there. That's our news, one of our big newspapers.
Right,
in
Chicago Sun-Times.
Yeah, they did a big article on my story, and it's a picture. I look toe up from the floor. Oh my gosh, I can't stand that picture. But Roger looks just like a regular patient, and Roger, by the way, used to have really long dreadlocks, you know. So I'm looking all crazy, with my glasses on, and I'm reaching up to him like, "Oh my God, you're okay," Yeah, and he came into my room. He walked there from his room and came to see me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've seen that picture.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Yeah, I was up like really quick, and I was up too fast for my mom. She was like, wait, you're doing too much. Lay down. But I was up and moving.
Yeah, but I'm sure the nurses encouraged that, because that was a good way for you to start passing that gas too. Because I had the gas issue too, maybe not as bad as you did. Now I remember, those little things start coming back that that was one of your biggest complaints. Yeah. And then
Audrey, did the kidney start working right away?
Yes, there was a story I was told. You know how once the surgery it's done, and they come out and talk to the family, because the family's like, oh my God, are they okay? Is Roger okay? Da, 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 da. How did it go? And they said, well, let us just say the surgery went great. Roger's great. Roger's already in recovery, because of course, before they separated us, they were obviously, removed it from him first. And then, so once they got you back together, they took you, I'm sure, in recovery. And so I'm the last one coming out. And I was told that, yeah, the doctor said surgery went great. She got a great kidney, which I actually nicknamed my Power Ranger kidney. And I do, that's what I call it. And so Roger did great, and she did good. We only had one problem, with Audrey, and I remember Aunt Marie, Roger. Aunt Marie didn't have much of a sense of humor sometimes. But anyway, because I heard later she was like really ticked off about what they said. But they were like, well, what's the problem? What do you mean? What? Just some? Oh, well, she, time we hooked the kidney up, it was working, and she's just, it's just urine. She's peeing all over our floor. We had to get housekeeping.
Well,
so that's
funny. A good sign, though, Audrey.
There you go. That's what they meant. And I'm like, you guys were coming down on them over there, but I don't think that's funny at all. He scared me. Yeah, so it went great. It worked great. Yeah. Never had any problems. How we have to get those regular couple of times a week. Sometimes they have to tweak the meds a little. But no, I can truly say I have never had any problems with my kidney since Roger gave me this kidney. Mm-hmm.
Roger, the thing that a lot of potential donors ask about is whether or not the person that donated had any issues with their health afterwards. How was your health since the time of the transplant to today? How have you been?
Great. I think maybe it took maybe about, I want to say maybe 6 months to get back to 100%, but I would say at 70 to 80%, like within a week. Of course, there were some guidelines, I couldn't do. They say don't go horseback riding, don't do anything too strenuous until you feel as though you're back at 100%. But my life went on as it had been going on prior to the surgery. Yeah, and I'm sure that's something to do with my age. I was able to bounce back quick. But even to today, the only issue that I have is when each year I go to my physical, they always say, oh, your creatinine level is too high. I'm like, we go to this every year. My new normal is like 1.5, 1.4. We go to this every year. That's my new normal. But I haven't had any setbacks, anything that I would say altered my life prior to the surgery.
Okay, so for those people that want to donate, as far as your experience was concerned, basically your life experience has been the same since before transplant. Would that be fair for me to say?
Yes. And can I also say this too? I never received any bill of any kind related to the procedure. And Audrey lived in Chicago. I lived in Memphis and then moved to Atlanta, where I reside now. Even to this day, if I feel like if I just have, I don't know, if I just think that something is wrong, I can go. Well, I have went into an hospital or an ER and said, hey, I'm feeling kind of funky. Can we check this out? I am a donor. And I don't know if it's just me, but they have checked me out and ran tests. Said you're fine, and still I have never received a bill for anything.
Oh wow!
So I don't. Maybe I'm just. I don't know, but never.
Well,
Well,
because the transplant itself, the Chicago Police Department paid for everything.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was
I
going
mean,
to say your recipient's insurance usually
Okay. Well,
covers.
yeah.
but that's a blessing because
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, people. Don't profess to know what everyone's career job if they would do that, but a lot of times too, there's so many different types of apprehension about living donation, and I know one of them I'm sure is for people who's paying. That like, am I going to be stuck with this money? There's fear. It's a lot of different things that prevent people from myths and misconceptions that prevent people from being donors.
But it was also my understanding, I remember this from my consultation or whatever they were having me through, that even if for some reason your insurance didn't cover, Northwestern Hospital would cover any out-of-pocket expense I may have occurred because of
Yes,
the
as well as
procedure.
Medicare. Isn't that
Yeah.
right, Uncle Jim?
Yes, Medicare,
Yep.
Medicaid, absolutely.
Right, right.
And the other thing, Roger, I imagine they told you is that if you ever had kidney failure, you would automatically go to the top of the list to
Mhm.
receive a kidney transplant. Am I correct about that?
Yes, and that is what really like settled my family, like my grandmother, like knowing that if next week something was to happen to my one remaining kidney, that I would have preference on
Mhm.
the kidney list,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
nationwide, just not statewide.
Mhm.
All right. And Audrey, I understand that when you were released from the hospital, it was March 6th, which is your birthday.
Mhm. My
And
43rd birthday.
that was 20 years ago.
Yes,
Just
yes,
celebrated.
yes. It was. It was 20 years ago. And what's really interesting too and amazing to me when it just popped in my head that the weekend of the devastation of knowing, of finding out rather that I was sick and what was the cause was the weekend of my birthday. And the weekend of receiving the gift of life from Roger ended up being the weekend of my 43rd birthday. Unbeknownst to me that was going to land in that way.
Wow.
That's a big deal. That's amazing. So
And
yeah.
and here we are celebrating your 20th kidney
20.
anniversary.
Yeah, yeah. I've had
A
people.
month-long celebration, by the way.
That's right. That's right. They're lucky I'm not in my 30s because it would be longer than that. But yeah, it feels good. People are like, you should check with Guinness Book of World Records and see if you're the first. And I'm like, that's a thought. But yeah, it's just that's the kids were like, man, that's just so awesome. And wow, mom, and that's just really, really awesome. And of course, they're grateful. And I always tell Roger, thank you so much. He's like, could you
And I
tell me
say,
that,
please
please?
stop. Oh my God. Stop. I know.
How you
You're
stop
welcome. I know.
that?
Audrey, we talked a little bit earlier about some of your kidney advocacy work. Is there anything on the horizon as far as your kidney advocacy that's coming up next that you can tell us about?
Well, I'm not actually podcasting right now because there's been a shift in my life, just obviously moving to another state and getting acclimated, for I'm not saying for everybody, but that's a big deal, getting readjusted, when you lived one place and now you're switched to another. But I'm fine with that now. But basically what has happened is God has just shifted me in another area out from that. I am very much into the ministry now. I'm very involved in my church. I'm one of their missions coordinators. I help people who are coming new into Christ to study the Bible, as well as several other things. And so I got something else big going on, which I'll share at another time. But the beauty of it is that as much as I loved podcasting, I don't need that per se to get my story out, because just about everybody I encounter, whether I'm doing something through the ministry or just in a general conversation, if that person is dealing with something or feeling down about something or unsure, I always bring up my story. And that really, really helps people get a whole new vision. Everybody that I have talked to about that and touched, that is something that really helps. And that was really big, a big part of being in Florida, that I loved, and being on the team with Tampa General Hospital, and one of the co-chairs of the transplant board. And let me just mention this other organization that I was a part of there, because I love this team and I got involved with them there. It was called NOTE, and that stood for National Organization for Transplant Enlightenment. And this was a team of all recipients. There was probably about 10 of us, maybe, who was put together, compiled by the gentleman, Tom, and God, I'm sorry, guys, if you're listening to this, I forgot his last name, but he was the first heart recipient, the first heart transplant recipient. He put this group of people together. All of these people had either heart, liver, kidney, lungs, and we would visit every patient on the transplant floors there. We split up, and Tampa General has 3 transplant floors, and we go and talk to every single patient on those floors to encourage them, offer them, we had, it was a nonprofit to offer financial assistance if they need it, if they, just encouraging them, whatever they needed, however we could help. And I love that. And I love that team. So shout out to NOTE. That team is no longer, unfortunately, in effect, but I did want to make mention of them.
Okay. Roger, you came on the broadcast with us today to share your story. Have you shared your story in the past about your experiences of being a donor?
Oh, yes. I've shared it with, of course, friends and colleagues. I teach college English, and so I've had many of students who have been donors themselves, or who have received kidneys, or even some students who are on dialysis. And so I always take that time to make sure that I encourage them, and and just talk about our similarities, and just let them know that you're still living, and so look at me, and so those things of that nature. So yeah, I mean, my story's out there. I talk about it. I don't beat folks over the head with it, but I share.
Where do you teach, Roger?
I teach at Chattahoochee Technical College.
Okay. Little shameless plug.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we're in the home stretch. Audrey first. Do you have any final statement that you wish to make today to our audience before we close the discussion for the evening?
Yeah. As always, I just want to encourage anyone that is dealing with kidney disease, or has just been diagnosed. I know it's hard, but just please keep your faith. Be encouraged, because this is not, transplantation has come so far from what it used to be. And the technology is getting better and better. I know many people are hearing about the transplantation of like kidneys from pigs and things. I'm reading about this more and more. It's like really happening, and these people are, so far, the ones I've heard about, are doing very well. So there is hope, and you just have to stay encouraged and take care of yourself. If you are waiting on that transplant list, make sure you are taking your medications. that you're still, if you're able, I know some people are kind of sicker than others, but get exercise in. Please leave all those unhealthy foods alone. Eat clean. Don't drink pop. Don't drink liquor, because you want to be ready for when they call you for that organ. You want to be ready for it. And you don't want to be sick, which is something my nephrologist told me. That's why you did great extending that outward 8 years before the actual need came, but we don't want to delay putting you on dialysis any longer, Audrey, because she said, I don't want you to wake up one morning and be so sick you can't get out of bed, and that organ, that call comes for you to come and get that kidney, because our bodies are going to automatically try to reject it. So the better shape that you're in, the better you're going to do with that transplant, and in conjunction with your mental state of mind. I've talked to some very down people when I was at Tampa General, very negative, and they weren't doing good. And so I would listen and just let them vent, and then try to tell them it's really important, sir, ma'am, that you stay encouraged during this time. I know it's hard. Everybody is going to handle this differently, but one of the greatest things to me was that got me through it, was remaining positive and not letting it change who I was, my lifestyle. And so that's what I did. And I do believe that that is another aspect of me being able to sit here before everyone and give praise to celebrating this 20th year of this Power Ranger kidney, and always giving honor, whether I give it to him audibly or in my prayers every single day, for what he did for me. My children have their mom, and my grandchildren have their grandmother, and he's doing great.
Yeah.
Roger, do you have any final statement that you would like to make to our audience tonight before we conclude the broadcast?
If you're thinking about donating a kidney or any organ, I say, of course, first do your research, but secondly, what I think is most importantly, sit still, praise your higher power, mine is God, and just follow your heart.
Okay. Well, folks, that's our broadcast for this evening. Thank you, Audrey and Roger, for coming on with us and educating us and raising awareness about kidney transplant and kidney donation and how to take care of your new transplanted kidney. I mean, for 20 years, oh my God, Audrey. And such great stories that you told us tonight. I have a couple of things I have to button up with my audience, but I've kept you guys for over an hour. So I'm going to excuse you now, but I just wanted to say thank you very much for coming on. Just a great broadcast tonight. I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too.
Yeah, and thank you, Uncle Jim, for having us. And Roger, thank you for blessing me with the gift.
All right, I get it.
I love you. I love you. Bye.
All right. Good night, folks.
Bye,
you have a good evening.
Night. You too, Uncle Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey.
Bye.
All right. That's our broadcast for tonight. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. On Friday, March 28th, I'm on with David Perchinsky. David wanted to do a broadcast where we talk and ask the tough questions about dialysis and kidney transplant. So I sent him a list of your Uncle Jim's tough questions, and he okayed it. So the things that you really wanted to know from a kidney patient, they're coming up this Friday with our friend David Perchinsky, who's still on dialysis and still waiting for a transplant. So former football coach, college teacher, dialysis patient, working with Kidney Solutions. It should be an interesting broadcast. So you want to check that out on Friday. And I just want to thank everybody for checking out our broadcast tonight. I want to thank Roger, and I want to thank Audrey for coming on and being so gracious about sharing their stories with us. And I'll see you guys on Friday. So until then, take care.